What if one of the greatest champions in bodybuilding history was almost erased from the record books? Jimmy Payne had the strength of a weightlifter, the balance of a gymnast, and the charisma of a showman. In 1950 he won the IFBB Mr. America title, yet, decades later, his name was missing from many official lists. While his friends like Jack LaLanne became TV icons and Steve Reeves went on to Hollywood fame, Payne's legacy slipped through the cracks of bodybuilding politics. And yet, this forgotten champion was performing feats so daring that few bodybuilders would even attempt, like handstand dips on a helicopter hovering hundreds of feet in the air. He even hosted one of the first kids' fitness shows on television, and at nearly 50 could still beat men twice his size on the arm wrestling table. So how did a man this talented become the forgotten Mr. America? Jimmy Payne's story began in Oakland, California in 1926. His childhood wasn't easy. During the Depression, his parents divorced, and at 13 he fractured his skull in a fall so badly that doctors told him to avoid strenuous activity for the rest of his life. Jimmy ignored that advice. Instead, he threw himself into gymnastics and hand balancing, finding freedom in movement rather than restriction. He grew up just a short walk from Neptune Beach, often called the Muscle Beach of Northern California. It was here that he first saw athletes training their bodies like both performers and strongmen. Among them was Jack LaLanne, already a decade older and starting to build a reputation. LaLanne took Jimmy under his wing and together they practiced hand-balancing stunts that blended strength with showmanship. At home, Payne improvised his first weights with broomsticks and cement-filled cans, until a neighbor welded together one of the earliest pulley-style machines for him. Soon he was training in Oakland gyms alongside future stars like Steve Reeves, guided by local instructors such as Clem Petchman. By 1943, with World War II underway, the 17-year-old Payne enlisted in the U.S. Navy. His athleticism earned him a post as a physical training instructor at Treasure Island in San Francisco, where he worked under Sam LaPrinzi. There he drilled soldiers in calisthenics, wrestling, boxing, and barbell lifting, a broad foundation that would later make him one of the most versatile athletes of his generation. Looking back years later, Payne said he was priming soldiers for their overseas conflict, an early glimpse of the teaching spirit that would define his career. What Jimmy didn't know yet was that this mix of gymnastics, balance, and strength would one day fuel feats so outrageous that crowds thought they were impossible, and ultimately carry him to a Mr. America title, one that bodybuilding history almost forgot. Up next, how Payne's unique mix of acrobatics and strength made him stand out, and the outrageous stunts that turned him into a Muscle Beach legend. By the late 1940s, Jimmy Payne had become a regular at Muscle Beach in Santa Monica, the epicenter of America's strength, acrobatics, and showmanship. Unlike most bodybuilders who simply posed, Payne mixed gymnastics with muscle. He pressed into effortless handstands, balanced on pedestals, and held positions that amazed even seasoned acrobats. On the sand, he quickly earned a reputation as one of the strongest balancers of his era. But what made him stand out wasn't just strength, it was style. Payne cracked jokes between feats, played to the crowd, and proved that muscles could move with grace and agility. In Strength and Health magazine, he was even photographed balancing with his children. Proof that for Payne, performance wasn't just for the stage, it was woven into his family life. And every now and then, he'd attempt a stunt so daring people weren't even sure it was possible. One of those feats would later put him hundreds of feet in the air, balanced upside down from a helicopter. But more on that soon. As Clarence Ross once said, Payne was the best all-around performer. Muscle Beach wasn't just a training ground for him, it was his stage. In 1956, at just 148 pounds, Jimmy Payne performed one of the greatest crucifix feats ever recorded. Suspended in the Iron Cross position, he held an additional 60 pounds, an act so rare that strength historian David Willoughby gave it a rating of 984 points, higher than Olympic champions of the era. It wasn't just bodybuilding anymore. Payne proved that his strength was about balance, control, and gymnastic mastery. At Muscle Beach, this feat cemented him as one of the strongest balancers in history, standing alongside names like Jack Dillinger and Bert Asarati, but with a style uniquely his own, and soon he would carry that charisma beyond the beach, onto nightclub stages and eventually into American living rooms. After the war, Payne followed in Jack LaLanne's footsteps, opening his own gym in Oakland and entering physique contests. He wasn't the biggest man on stage, standing just 5'5", and weighing about 145 to 150 pounds, but what he lacked in size he made up for in proportion, definition, and sheer stage presence. In 1947, he won Mr. Northern California, defeating men much larger than himself, even future Mr. America Jack LaLanne. By the early 1950s, bodybuilding was split between two powers, the long-established AAU, backed by Bob Hoffman of York Barbell, and the new IFBB, created by Joe and Ben Weider. The Weiders wanted to rival the AAU by launching their own Mr. America contest with prize money. And in 1950, Jimmy seized that opportunity. On a packed night in Oakland, in front of nearly 1,000 fans, Payne outperformed rivals like Vince Gironda and Norman Marks to capture the 1950 IFBB Mr. America title, becoming the smallest man ever to hold a Mr. America crown. At just 150 pounds, Payne was putting up elite lifts for his weight: a 245-pound military press, a 210-pound snatch, a 280-pound clean and jerk, and also 500-pound deadlift. He even entered international weightlifting meets as a lightweight, proving he wasn't just a showman but a serious strength athlete. But here's the twist: while AAU winners like John Farbotnik were celebrated and remembered in official records, Payne's victory vanished from the records, a casualty of bodybuilding's political war. Payne himself joked, "I won $180, but I didn't get the publicity I should have. At the time, the money mattered more, but history overlooked me." So despite his admired physique and legendary performances, Jimmy Payne became known as the forgotten Mr. America. But contests were only one part of his story. While bodybuilding politics buried his recognition, Payne's unique blend of muscle and showmanship soon carried him into Hollywood and beyond. By the early 1950s, Jimmy wasn't just competing, he was performing. At Muscle Beach in Santa Monica, crowds gathered to watch him press into effortless handstands, balance on bars, and trade acrobatic stunts with his old friend Jack LaLanne. Payne's specialty was balance. One contemporary even called him one of the strongest balancers at Muscle Beach. Collectors note that some of the rare photos of him show not just a physique pose, but a father balancing his kids in playful stunts, a blend of family and showmanship few others could match. That combination of strength and charisma soon carried him beyond the sand. Mae West, the Hollywood icon building her famous nightclub act of Muscle Men, cast Payne alongside George Eiferman and Joe Gold. Together they brought a mix of gymnastics, posing, and comedy to the Las Vegas stage. Mae West later became the first major celebrity to give bodybuilding mainstream recognition, and Payne was right there helping make it happen. But Payne's shows were never just about flexing. He cracked jokes, tap danced, and mixed humor with feats of strength that left audiences stunned. In one exhibition, he even performed a full routine while suspended 400-500 feet in the air from a helicopter, a feat so outrageous most people thought it was impossible. As he said years later, "When you're in show business, you've got to do everything, so I did everything, except sing." Through Hollywood stages and Muscle Beach platforms, Payne proved that bodybuilding could be more than posing. It could be entertainment, inspiration, and pure spectacle. Up next, Payne would bring that same energy to television, creating one of the first fitness shows for kids, decades before influencers made exercise a trend. By the late 1950s, Jimmy had already proven himself on stage and at Muscle Beach. day. Up next, we'll look at how Payne stayed active long after the spotlight faded, and why, even in his 70s, he could still outlift and outperform men half his age. Even after his bodybuilding prime, Jimmy never slowed down. In the 1960s, he moved to Northern California, opening gyms and mentoring clients. Locals remembered him as a beloved mentor, always quick with encouragement, always smiling on the workout floor. But Payne wasn't just teaching, he was still competing. In the small town of Petaluma, California, he became a fixture at the World Wrist Wrestling Championships, the birthplace of modern arm wrestling. Against men far bigger than him, Payne shocked crowds by winning 4 world titles in 1964, 1966, 1974, and 1975. In fact, during the 1970s, Payne even wrist wrestled a young Arnold Schwarzenegger, who outweighed him by more than 80 pounds. When asked how he did against the future Mr. Olympia, Payne's answer was blunt: "I whipped his ass." Moments like this cemented his reputation as a fearless competitor. His feats didn't stop there. On his 52nd birthday, Payne knocked out 51 handstand push-ups in a row, one for every year of his life, surpassing even Jack LaLanne's record. He can even perform a one-finger chin with each of his index fingers 4 times. These weren't just party tricks. They were proof of his philosophy. Strength should be functional, versatile, and fun. Despite never becoming as famous as Reeves or LaLanne, Payne lived a rich and devoted life. He and his wife Jane raised 4 children, many of whom joined him in promoting fitness. Even in his late 70s, he could be found in the gym, still training, still teaching. As historian John Fair put it, unheralded in his prime and denied by circumstances a place in bodybuilding's heritage, Jimmy Payne became the forgotten Mr. America. Which raises the question, was Payne's greatest strength his physique, or the fact that he inspired generations to treat fitness as a way of life? Jimmy Payne's story reminds us that true legacy isn't always written in the record books. He may not have gotten the magazine covers or Hollywood roles, but he proved something deeper, that strength is about versatility, consistency, and joy. When Jimmy passed in 2012 at the age of 85, friends and family remembered him not just as a bodybuilder, but as a man who made fitness joyful and accessible. His obituary called him a major figure at the Petaluma World Wrist Wrestling Championships, proof that even at nearly 50, he could still humble younger, heavier men. As Bill Pearl once put it, Payne may have been of short stature, but he carried a Herculean personality that made him unforgettable to anyone who met him. And maybe the best way to sum up his life comes from his own family. When Jimmy passed, they didn't ask for flowers or donations. Instead, they said, "Buy a gym membership and use it." That's Payne's legacy. Fitness wasn't about trophies, it was about living strong and inspiring others to do the same. So what do you think? Should Jimmy be remembered alongside Reeves, LaLanne, and Pearl, or as the man who showed that fitness could be fun for everyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And tell us, which forgotten legend should we cover next? Your comments will decide it. If you'd like to support these videos even further, you can hit super thanks or join channel memberships, where you'll get exclusive perks and help keep these golden era stories alive. And if you want to see another pioneer overshadowed by politics and circumstances, check out my video on George Eiferman, the man who made America lift.